And the idea that somehow we would wind up in a spot where there'd be a much bigger deficit impact over a tax reform package is causing some to think that perhaps the tax conversation is going to be a little more complicated than most of us ever thought, meaning even further out than first quarter or second quarter.
And here we have our gridlock, lots of things going on that are going to cause problems and probably keep tax reform from getting finished really quickly. All the talk about infrastructure, how they're going to handle that, if that's going to be through tax reform, if it's going to be done as some sort of spending measure, we don't know. Affordable Care Act repeal, which is already starting to show how difficult that really is going to be. Comprehensive tax reform is in the middle of this. Corporate integration is another potential tax reform idea, and then everything going on with the budget, reconciliation, and all the spending bills.
We've become basically, on the LIHTC side, a $14 billion industry. Right? Last year we raised $14 billion in our industry just on funds.
But bonds, and this is an area where I think our greatest vulnerability is. So I think, as everybody knows, housing bonds, multifamily housing bonds, are responsible for about 40% of housing credit production. And bonds, I think, are our biggest vulnerability. In the Camp draft, all private activity bonds lost their tax exemption, and housing bonds are one type of private activity bond. So this is an area where, as you're doing your advocacy work, I would really encourage you to stress the importance of the 4% credit in the bond program when you go into offices and when you're talking to members back in your states, because I think that here's where we are most likely to hit major problems. Even if we are lucky enough to keep the housing credit and to keep the bond program and successful in that way, a 20% corporate income tax or 15% corporate income tax or any lower corporate income tax is going to have an impact on pricing absent other potential modifications